All right, they want us to complete the square. That what they want us to do is they want us to take this. I'll give you the motivation. Here's going to be your equation, and they're going to want you to solve the equation. They're going to basically want you to figure out what number. They want you to be able to complete the square, which is another way to solve an equation. I'll explain why in a second. I shouldn't have written that in there. That's stupid. All right, so here's what they want you to do. They want you to find a number to go here so that this trinomial factors like that. And the trick is this: you take half of, this is called b, you take half of b. As long as this is a 1, that's the key. As long as a is a 1, you take half of b, which is 3/2, and you square it, and that's what you put there. And the reason you do that is because now, look what happens. This thing right here, let's check it. Let's check the work. What's x plus 3/2 times x plus 3/2? That's what x plus 3/2 squared is, right? What is this? That's going to be what? It's going to be 3/2 x plus 3/2 x, right? What's 3/2 x plus 3/2 x? What's 3/2 plus 3/2? It's
6/2, which is
it's 3 holes. 3/2 plus 3/2 is 3 holes, right?
Yeah.
You follow? Hey, look at that. That's 3 holes right there. 3 whole numbers. And then the the first is going to be x squared, and the last is going to just be what? The last is going to be 3/2 squared. That's completing the square. Let me do another one. X squared plus 5x. So what they're going to want you to do is they're going to want you to, let me just go ahead and put plus 3 here. Because this is the way the problem is going to look a lot of times. It's going to look like this, and they're going to say, solve this equation by completing the square. And so what you have to do is you have to rewrite this equation like this. I like to put a box here. So here's what you're going to do. You're going to take this equation, and you're going to introduce...
Isn't that equals?
Nope.
Yeah, isn't it like
Nope.
equals 3? No?
Nope.
Yeah.
Nope. Look, what did I do here? See the red? See that? That's my equation. What am I going to do? I'm going to add something here, and I'm going to subtract that same something here. When you're doing math, what are you allowed to do? You have to keep an equation balanced, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to add something right here, but I'm also going to subtract it right here, so that I keep it balanced. And what am I going to add? I'm going to add half of b squared. I'm going to add it, but I'm also going to subtract it. And why am I doing that? Because this thing is going to factor how now? X plus 5/2 squared. And this right here is just going to be plus, let's just keep it over here as a mess, minus 25/4, right? Let's just keep it like a mess right there. And I'm going to prove a point. Even though that was a trick, there's nasty fractions here, it's not a big deal. Because all I have to do is take this, move it over to the other side. So let's turn this 3 common denominator of 4, right? So that's 12. 3 is the same as 12/4. So 12/4 minus 25/4 is what? Negative 13/4. All right, now see what I have here? I have an equation that I can solve by just isolating the variable. I'm going to get rid of the negative 13/4 by doing what?
Adding
it. So it's 13/4 equals x plus 5/2 squared. Now what do? Get rid of the squared by doing what?
Square rooting.
Square rooting, and don't forget when you square root it to put what in front? Plus or minus. And how do I get rid of the 5/2?
Subtract it.
I subtract it. So what does x equal? Negative 5/2 plus or minus the square root of 13. I'm going to simplify that. What's the square root of 13 over 4 the same as? Square root of 13 over, what's the square root of 4? 2. There's my answer. There's my 2 answers. Now, they were ugly answers, granted, I'll give it to you. But how did I find those answers? I completed the square, and then I isolated my variable. That's why they're asking you questions like, what number do I have to put there to complete the square? Because when they give you this problem right here, they want you to be able to solve it without using the quadratic formula. Now let's take a look at that problem. What if I did use the quadratic formula? Let's check it. X squared plus 5x plus 3. Can I factor this first of all? Does that factor?
No.
No, it doesn't factor. If it did factor, that'd be nice because I would be easy. But it doesn't factor. So let's use the quadratic formula. Remember that? It's negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a, right? All right, let's simplify that. Negative 5 plus or minus the square root of, this is what? 12. What's 25 minus 12? Sounds familiar, doesn't it? 25 minus 12 is what? 13 over 2. Hey, look at that. It's negative 5 halves plus 13 over 2 and minus 13 over 2. That's the exact thing I got here. Now you might say, well, yeah, this was easier. I would rather do quadratic formula. And that's fine, but you have to know how to do completing the square too, because sometimes completing the square is easier. Let me give you one last example. Completing the square is easier when you have a problem like this. Completing the square is super easy because a is 1 and b is even. So watch how easy this is. I'm going to rewrite this problem. Remember how I use that extra box to rewrite it? So I'm going to add something here, and I'm also going to subtract the same something. What is it that I'm adding and subtracting?
4.
Half of that squared, which is 2 squared. Watch how easy this is. X plus 2 squared, that's that, minus 3 equals 0. So what does x equal? Add 3, right? Gone. Take the square root. Gone. Subtract 2. Done. Negative 2 plus or minus the square root of 3. That was a much easier thing to do if you really understood completing the square than trying to use the quadratic formula. The quadratic formula still would work, but if you know how to complete the square and you're really proficient at it, that's a super easy thing to do. Now, the other thing you need to know the completing the square for, when you get to pre-calculus, you're going to learn about conic sections, circles, hyperbolas, ellipses, and trust me, you need to know how to complete the square. So don't think that it's only for this that you need to know it. You need to know it for other things as well, so learn it and use it.